Who were Jesus' enemies? It's important for us to look at exactly who those people were. So first, the Pharisees, Sadducees, and other religious leaders were his enemies because they opposed and even hated him. The second group were the Romans, or the other political powers, that disapproved and even feared him. And then we have his frenemies. We've talked about frenemies before, the so-called friends and disciples who disagreed with him and even betrayed him. And yet Jesus calls us to radical love, which includes seeing others the way that God sees them. So it's important for us to see and discern exactly who are our enemies. Do you have any enemies? Any that you know of? And it's also important for us to know who our frenemies are. But we look to Jesus and reflect upon how he viewed and dealt with his enemies. First, Jesus uses the Greek word agape when he's talking about loving our enemies. And agape love is a call to view people like God views them and respond to them the way that God wants us to respond to them and act towards them in the way that God wants us to act towards them. So we know that Jesus responded to the religious leaders by debating with them, by disagreeing with them, and by challenging them. But he did not hate them. And then Jesus responded to his other political opponents by talking to them, by respecting them, and opposing them. But he did not hate them. And then Jesus responded to his frenemies by conversing with them, setting boundaries with them, and even trying to reconcile with them. But he did not hate them. And it's hard for us to love our frenemies and enemies. Why? Why is it hard? Because God created us with a brain that has an amygdala. And the amygdala is the fight or flight part of the brain. And most animals have an amygdala. But we human beings also have frontal lobes that animals do not have. And the frontal lobes are the front part of the human brain, and they provide us with the ability to plan and organize, make decisions, solve problems, regulate our emotions, and even manage our behaviors. So we can simply think about road rage. How many of you get road rage? And so what happens to us when we get road rage is we stop seeing that person, because we don't even see them. We see this car that becomes a threat to our safety, and we see them as an obstacle. That's what happens to our brains. We no longer see a person, because most of the time we can't see them, right? And then we become so angry because we're afraid, scared, but also angered that someone could come close to cut us off or hit us. I've been in so many car accidents that it's partially the reason why I've had to have 2 neck surgeries. So if someone comes close to me, I'm like, oh. And I don't know about you, but some of us got German tempers or Irish tempers, or Italian tempers, or just tempers in general. You go from 0 to 10 like that. And what happens is you're just stuck in the amygdala. And you're not in your right mind. That's what they mean. And so that's what happens with road rage. And we know that over the last 10 years, road rage keeps getting worse and worse. There's more and more violence that's been happening literally on the streets. So the stats are that there is a 500% increase in road rage in the last 10 years. That there are thousands of people who are injured, like up to 14,000 injuries in the last 10 years from road rage alone, and over 300 deaths.